everyone, welcome back to Silver's Edge. Whether you're dreaming of creating the next indie hit or just dipping your toes into the world of game development, understanding game design principles is key to bringing your vision to life. Game design isn't just about flashy graphics or complex mechanics, it's about crafting an experience players will feel and remember. Today, I'm breaking down the core principles of game design for beginners. So, grab your notebook and let's dive into the art of making great games. What is game design? Let's start with the basics. What is game design? Game design isn't just about making mechanics or levels, it's about creating an experience. It's how you guide players through emotions, decisions, and challenges. At its heart, game design answers two questions: what do I want players to do, and how do I want them to feel while playing? For example, in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you feel a sense of wonder and freedom as you explore its vast world, while in Celeste, you feel perseverance as you conquer challenging levels tied to an emotional narrative. And in Dark Souls, you feel tension and relief. Every victory feels earned because of the game's difficulty. So, as a game designer, your job is to think like a storyteller, psychologist, and an engineer, all rolled into one. Core principles of game design. Now let's dive into the 5 key principles every beginner game designer needs to understand. Number 1. Define the core gameplay loop. The core gameplay loop is the set of actions players repeat over and over. This loop is the backbone of your game. It keeps players engaged and coming back for more. Here's how it works. For example, in Stardew Valley, the loop is simple yet addictive. Plant crops, harvest and sell them, and upgrade your farm. While in Doom, the loop is all about adrenaline. Kill enemies, explore new areas, and upgrade your weapons. Here's a tip for you guys. Keep the loop engaging and rewarding. Players should feel like they're building towards something, whether it's better equipment, new abilities, or progression in the story. Number 2. Challenge and reward. Humans love overcoming challenges. It's hardwired into our brains. A great game balances challenge and reward. Too easy? Players get bored. Too hard? They get frustrated. For example, in Celeste, the platforming is tough, but the controls are precise and every checkpoint feels like an achievement. While in Hollow Knight, the bosses are challenging but each victory feels monumental, thanks to thoughtful design and rewarding upgrades. Number 3. Player agency. Agency is about letting players make meaningful choices. When players feel like their actions shape the story or gameplay, they become emotionally invested. For example, in Mass Effect, your dialogue choices can forge alliances or spark conflicts. While in Undertale, sparing or killing enemies changes the entire tone and outcome of the story. Here's a tip for you. Even small choices like customizing a character or choosing a playstyle add layers of player agency. And at number 4 we have keep it simple. Great games don't throw everything at once. Start simple, teach mechanics gradually, and build complexity over time. Super Mario Bros. Is the best example. Level 1 teaches you to move, jump, and avoid enemies without a single line of text, and by the later levels, you're using the same mechanics in more challenging ways. And finally, at number 5, we have feedback is key. Feedback is how your game communicates with players. It tells them you're doing great or you made a mistake. Try again. There can be 3 types of feedback: visual feedback, a flashing health bar or particle effects, and audio feedback, a satisfying sound when you score a hit, or a tactile feedback, controller vibrations when you take damage. Designing for fun and engagement. Now let's talk about fun. Because no matter how technically impressive or visually stunning your game is, if it's not fun, players won't stick around. But what makes a game fun? It's not as simple as you think. Fun is about engagement, and engagement comes from understanding your player's psychology. Let's look at the few examples. Number 1. Flow state, the balance between challenge and skill. Games that keep players engaged often hit something called the flow state. This is when the challenge matches the player's skill level, creating a sense of focus and immersion. You know that feeling when you're into a game that you lose track of time? That's flow. For example, Tetris is a prime example. As your skill improves, the game gets faster. It's just hard enough to keep you engaged but not so overwhelming that you give up. Similarly, Celeste does this beautifully by introducing mechanics one at a time. Just when you master one, the game adds a new twist, keeping you challenged but never frustrated. Number 2, the reward systems, the science of motivation. Humans love rewards, it's in our DNA. Games that reward players consistently are more engaging. But it's not just about handing out loot, it's about making rewards feel earned. For example, in Hades, every run gives you new abilities or story interactions. Even if you fail, you walk away feeling like you've progressed. While in Fortnite, cosmetics and emotes create a sense of personalization and accomplishment. Players are motivated to keep playing to collect new items. Here's a tip for you. Balance your rewards. Too many and they lose meaning. Too few and players lose interest. Just keep it in between. And at number 3 we have replayability, keeping players coming back. Replayability isn't just about making a long game, it's about creating reasons for players to return. For example, Hollow Knight does this by offering multiple endings and hidden secrets. Each playthrough feels like a new discovery, while Slay the Spire randomizes its levels, ensuring no two runs are the same. Players keep coming back to experiment with new strategies. So, if you want your game to have longevity, think about what will keep the players engaged beyond their first playthrough. The iterative process. Now that you've got a basic understanding of fun and engagement, let's talk about how games are made. Spoiler alert, it's not in one perfect attempt. Great games are built through iteration, a cycle of testing, refining, and improving. So let's talk about the steps. Number 1. Start with a prototype. Every great game begins with a simple prototype, a stripped down version of the core idea. You don't need fancy graphics or polished mechanics at this stage. Focus on testing whether your game's concept is fun. For example, Celeste started as a simple platforming challenge made in just 4 days during a game jam. That small prototype laid the foundation for the full game. Number 2. Playtesting, the secret weapon of game design. Once you have a working prototype, it's time to playtest. This means letting others, friends, family, or even strangers play your game and give feedback. Why this is so important? Well, for 2 reasons. What seems obvious to you might confuse players, and playtesters can point out flaws like a mechanic that's too hard or have unclear objectives. Listen to their feedback and refine your game accordingly. And the last step is polish, and even more polish. Polish is what separates good games from great ones. This means fixing bugs, improving visuals, balancing mechanics, and adding small touches that make your game feel professional. Remember, iteration isn't about perfection in the first draft, it's about improving with every step. Common mistakes to avoid. Even the best game designers make mistakes, especially early on, but you can learn from them. Here are the 3 most common pitfalls beginners face and how to avoid them. Number 1. Overcomplicating mechanics. New designers often want to cram too much into their games. Instead of focusing on 1 or 2 solid mechanics, they add layers of unnecessary complexity. This can overwhelm players and dilute the core experience. Here's a tip for you. Start small, master one mechanic like jumping or shooting, and build from there. Complexity should grow naturally. Number 2. Ignoring player feedback. It's easy to get attached to your ideas, but if players are consistently confused or frustrated, you need to adapt. Remember, your game isn't for you, it's for them. So be open to criticism and willing to make the changes. And finally, number 3, forgetting about fun. Sometimes designers focus so much on mechanics or visuals that they forget the ultimate goal, fun. So always ask yourself, is this enjoyable? Would I want to play this? Final tips. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground, but let's wrap up with some final tips. Number 1. Start small, think big. Remember, Every legendary game started small. Toby Fox didn't create Undertale overnight. It began as a simple project built with passion. Don't try to make your dream game right away. Start with something manageable and build from there. Number 2. Stay curious and keep learning. The best game designers are always learning. Explore new tools, play a variety of games, and study what makes them work. Platforms like Unity, Unreal Engine, or even simpler tools like RPG Maker are great starting points. And number 3, the most important one, don't be afraid to fail. Every great designer has faced setbacks. Prototypes fail, mechanics flop, but each failure is a step closer to success. Embrace it, learn from it, and keep going. Remember, game design is a journey. Whether your first game is a simple puzzle or the next indie hit, every step you take is progress. So, dream big, start small, and never stop creating. And that's it for today's video on game design principles for beginners. Which principle are you most excited to apply? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more game content, and hit that bell so you don't miss out the next videos. Stay creative, stay motivated, and as always, stay silver.